have found the Genesis frequency. This is Dr. Stephen J. Kazmina welcoming you in to another episode of a show that focuses on your whole life prosperity and success. Whole life prosperity and success by cooperating with the universal laws that are available to each and every one of us. This is Quantum Leap Goal Achievement, radical personal transformation, whole life prosperity and success. Now, stay tuned for another exciting episode that'll move the needle in your life from where you are now to where you want to be.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it may be, wherever you are in the world. When you hit that play button, so glad you did. Welcome into another entry of the Genesis Frequency Podcast. This is Dr. Cause and Effect, Dr. Stephen J. Kazmina coming at you. And, you know, I want to help you along with what I've been doing over the last 5 years. And it occurred to me that, wow, you know, so many times when we don't have skin in the game, we don't take action. And what I'm getting at is you can listen to a podcast like this, which is all about personal and professional development, and make a choice to either do something or not do something, to act or not act. And, you know, that's one thing as a consultant, as a coach. We can put the information out there. We can share what has worked in our lives to move us from where we were, making that quantum leap and moving us to where we wanted to be when we were, you know, at the starting point, so to speak. But there was action involved, right? There was first being or becoming involved. There was activity that had to take place. And, you know, I'm thinking about this podcast and all the content I have put out over the years. And I may even change some things moving forward later in the year after some valuations are done. But, you know, this material that I've put out at no cost is so valuable. And this is for, again, individuals, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and those of you in the corporate space as well, working on company culture, working on raising the bar, working on the next goal. Where do you want to take the corporation? What do you need to change in your environment? And everything that I share applies to all of these, to the individual, the entrepreneur, the corporate executive, or the corporate team member for that matter. So my point in starting the show today is to encourage you not to just listen, but to apply and embody. Embody the material that I share with you and apply it in your life. Prove it in your life. And take this information. This is valuable material. And, you know, it's out there. And perhaps I have shared it in a way that is easy for my listeners to understand and apply in their life. That's my hope. And then also integrating, you know, that spiritual aspect, integrating what has really worked and been aha moments in my life. So hopefully you're getting that, and hopefully you just don't brush this off as just a free podcast, got some good information. Hopefully you take this as something that you can really use. I don't know if we're going to go to a paid format or a membership format, but I think at some point, there's so many looking back. I had lost some pictures, and I've been repopulating episodes with those pictures, and I'm saying, wow, there's some really good stuff in here, and a lot of little mini-series in here too. And everything really that I've been talking about has been about manifestation, about manifesting the life you would love to live. And again, whether it's personal or professional. And so looking back just at where we are now from the beginning of the year to now, let's look at, we started the year out with that first podcast. Let's look at that. What will it be? Even the end of the year, I was prepping you to say, hey, what do you want to create next year? And then we started this year off with what'll it be? What do you want to do? What's your order? What are you going to do? You're going to place your order. What is, get specific about what you want. Then we did identification and implementation and examination and elimination. And then we did visualization plus assumption equal manifestation. And then last week we talked about the powerful space between stimulus and response. All different areas in consciousness that contribute or take away from what we want to make manifest in our field of experience. And oftentimes when I'm working with someone that's really serious, I mean, all you really have to do is you have to be willing and you have to be able. And you can experience and accomplish and achieve anything you want in life, personally and professionally. You got to just be willing and you got to be able. And often we'll get through these steps, as I shared in, since the beginning of the year or in other series that I have done. And people go back to the beginning and saying, that what'll it be? That place your order. What do I want? I want to rethink that. And why do they do that? And this happens with, so there's no common denominator except that in the beginning, they did not give themselves permission to think big enough. And we're not talking about just outside the box. We're talking like there is no box. We're talking about thinking from that place of infinity. Thinking from that place of, no limits. And so many people hear that and they go about making their list, and what is it I really, really want? What would satisfy that longing and discontent? But then the old beliefs start to come up. And we talked about this in identification and elimination. And I've talked about this in identifying the paradigms. But there's still that unconscious place within us where we believe on a different level. At first we can say, yeah, that sounds good. I just heard that in the podcast. I just took that in the course. I just went through a class. I just read the book. And yeah, I'm going to think from the infinite. I'm just going to think above. The sky's the limit. There are no limits. And I don't even use the word anymore. But there's something inside. And it kind of coexists with the paradigm that is a limiting belief. And those are also really, really entrenched. I take my morning study time and prayer and meditation, whatever you want to call it, time in the silence, practicing the presence, very seriously. And I'm usually going through a book at the same time where I just take 1 or 2 pages and I just really digest them and embody what's in there. And, I love the material by Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Dyer. And I'm going through one of his books right now, and I'm on a chapter about limiting beliefs. And he takes a look at some of these things that keep us stuck. And one of the things I did when I was talking about what'll it be, placing your order, designing the life you would love to live, I invited you to look at, hey, what do you believe and why do you believe in it? And usually those things, are on the surface, well, I believe in this, I believe in that, or I believe in this, I don't believe in that. But did we go deep enough? And that's what the show is all about today, this episode. And one of the reasons I'm reminded of this is because I'm going through this chapter, and this really jumps out at me when we talk about, are we thinking big enough? Because in this chapter that I'm on about limiting beliefs and what are they and releasing them, number 3 is belief number 3. People believe that, according to Dr. Dyer, says idealism can't coexist with realism. And this really nailed it. And I don't usually read on this podcast except when I did some Neville stuff. but this is only a few paragraphs long, and I want to just share this with you. Again, this is from Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Dyer, in his book, Your Sacred Self, Making the Decision to Be Free. And in this chapter about releasing beliefs, idealism can't coexist with realism. That's a belief, and that's something that we want to, get rid of. Get rid of. And again, this is for the personally, professionally, for either aspect of our life, whatever we're working on. He says, don't be such a dreamer, be realistic. These are things that we've heard all our life, right? Don't be such a dreamer, be realistic. Did you ever hear that? Forget about your inner vision. Look around you at what is happening. That is what is real. Well, boy, have we heard that all the time. We hear that all the time. We heard that all the time. I know I did growing up. You're daydreaming. Get real. Get real. Boy, was that a saying when I was growing up. Back to Dr. Dyer, he says, have you heard similar pronouncements often in your life? If so, you probably developed an attitude about what was possible and what was impossible. If the ideals that attracted you were labeled impossible, you probably sacrificed them for a way of viewing your world that was based on what others determined was, quote-unquote, realistic. Discarding that old belief about reality can be a major task on the path of the sacred quest. Are you ready to reconsider your view of reality? Perhaps William Blake's statement will inspire you. He said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. Can you imagine your reality in that way? Everything infinite? When your perception is expanded, nothing is real and nothing is imagined. All there is perception. When you cultivate this awareness, your reality is no longer defined by the physical world. At the tiniest quantum level, time is not a reality. Particles can be in more than one place at the same time, and they appear and disappear according to how we observe them and what measuring devices we use. All of this constitutes a new reality. Always remember, we are made of the same energy. Given this perspective, it is very important to hang on to your dreams and ideals. Quietly but determinedly, know that anything that you can conceive of, you can manifest in the material world of physical reality. If you want a richer experience of your life, abandon the idea that your reality is only what your senses report. Your inner world and all the energy of your higher awareness create a reality different from that which you have been taught. That's really, really important to get that. In this reality, your higher spirit, the loving presence within you, is dominant and very real. In this world, you rely on something quite different than ordinary reality. Choosing the way of the sacred quest means you will learn to rely on this new reality. Shift back to being the idealist who had inner inklings about the world of spirit. That idealist within you will happily do the following according to Buddha. Rely on the message of the teacher, not on his personality. Rely on the meaning, not just the words. Rely on the real meaning, not on the provisional one. Rely on your wisdom mind, not on your ordinary judgmental mind. Isn't that powerful? And then he goes on to, I would really recommend getting this book. Then he goes on to suggestions for releasing realism and welcoming idealism. And, and then we'll talk about it in the episodes moving forward because we're running down the clock here very rapidly. But he talks about trusting your intuition and making that list. I'm big on making the list, making a list of all the things you believed in before you were told they were impossible. How important is that? If we set out to really do this, to make some quantum leaps in our lives, personally and professionally, we made that list in the beginning. And if you're new to the show, go back a few episodes. I invite you to make a list of everything you think that you want in your life without thinking of the how, without thinking of whether it's possible or not. And when you did that, I wanted you to go back and feel through it energetically. And so now I want you to go back to that list and do that. Make a list of things that you believed in before and you were told they were impossible. Look at those lists and see if you glance over it now and say, I just crossed that one out because I just told myself it was impossible. So now you're going to look at that list in a different light. You're going to look at, hey, did I go through this list when I was feeling what really called to me energetically, but did I really go through it with this unconscious bias that, well, yeah, that's it, but I didn't really anyway think it was possible. That's what I'm asking you to question right now. And then he goes on practicing experimenting with your new reality. And he talks about the synchronicities in our lives when we make that commitment, when we set the intention, make the commitment, which I talked about in one of the January episodes, when we abandon the how because it's none of our business, but we set the intention and the commitment, did you start to notice the synchronicities that started showing up in your life? We probably called them coincidences, but they're not coincidences at all. It's just the energy, this universal energy, taking notice and moving people, places, things, conditions, situations, events into our perception that are supportive of what we want to create in our lives. So back to the beliefs, you got a list here, and that's why so many people that start working with me end up going back to the drawing board and reconsidering what their big dream, what I call C-type goal is, because they start to believe. They start to shift in belief, and they get in a couple months with me, and they're saying, is it okay if I go back to the beginning and rethink what I wanted in this corporate space or in this small business or for my life personally? Well, of course it is, because what's happening is they're beginning to uncover and peel back the layers of that realism. We've been conditioned, just like our paradigms have conditioned us into doing things in a certain way and participating in habitual behaviors of thought, word, and action. These beliefs, we've been conditioned by these beliefs. We're just told the way that thing is. We come to believe in it, and that's just the way it is. That's what we believe, right? We believe in what we believe in for a reason. Or is there a reason? So that's what you're invited to examine here when we wrap up this show today, is to really look deeper at those beliefs. Are you thinking from a place that the world told you is possible for that? So that's why you landed on that particular goal for this year, the year ahead. Or are you thinking from that spacious place where there absolutely are no limits whatsoever? We're going to work on the belief as we move forward, but let's examine the goal again. Let's revisit it. If you're working with me on this, and again, I'm putting this out there, there's a lot of value in this. Let's examine how you came up with what you came up with. What are you believing about it? Because you got to question too, do you believe it's possible for you? And if that's a no, I love the quote by Henry Ford. I use it often. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So it's really important to examine these beliefs at all different levels to uncover them. and just say, where did that come from? And if you find anything in those beliefs that is limiting, self-limiting, well, you really got to examine that one and probably throw it out, because we're talking about, quantum mechanics here. We're talking about infinite mind, infinite intelligence, infinite potential. That's what all this is all about. And we're going to talk more about all this. It just fascinates me. I've loved studying this all my life. And hopefully you're applying it and embodying it, and it's making a difference in your life, whether it's in the boardroom or in the basement and you're trying to get out. It doesn't matter. It works the same way because we're wired the same way. We have different beliefs. We have different paradigms. We have different habits. But this is the way our programming works. And when we work in harmony with how everything works, rather than living from the outside in, being told and dictated and programmed, this is how it is. Well, truly, the sky and beyond is the limit. We are infinite spiritual beings, and our potential is truly infinite. More on that. You want to dive deeper, you want to get involved in working with me on that, hey, reach out. Get on my calendar, successappointment.com. That'll open up in your time zone, successappointment.com. We can talk about anything that you hear in this show. There's no charge for that. Just hop on a call. Let's have a conversation, successappointment.com. We'll talk about, hey, what is it that you want? Are you really thinking outside the box like there is no box? Number two, we'll start to identify what's keeping you stuck. Why don't you have what you want yet? And number three, I'll let you go with a plan to move in that direction one way or another. And hey, if you love the field of personal and professional development like I do, and you want to move into that laptop and cell phone lifestyle where you can work anywhere in the world and have no limits to your income, hey, reach out. Let's talk about that. You want more information about that? I just posted a new video in my website for the business vehicle, which is successocean.biz. Go there and check it out, successocean.biz. And for those of you in the corporate space that might be interested in a workshop, a keynote talk, featured presentation, talking about corporate culture, customer service. I have a catalog of over 100 courses we do in the workplace. Hey, go to successocean.com, and there's a way to reach out and give us some more information about you and your company there, whether it's you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, or Fortune 50, Fortune 100. We can work with you too, successocean.com. Other than that, hey, leave me a comment. Reach out to me. Stephen, Stephen, at successocean.com is my email. And you got my calendar, successappointment.com. So many ways I am available, and I would love to speak with you. For right now, that's all the time we have. You've been listening to the Genesis Frequency, and this is Dr. Cause and Effect, Dr. Stephen J. Kosmina, wishing you an infinitely spectacular day. God bless you.